Hey guys, Kyle and Justin Peak here from Peak Pools and Spas in Nashville. In case you guys didn't know, we've been on the Pool King Show for the last 3 years on the DIY Network, and we got something to tell you today.
We are excited to announce that we are being interviewed by the Pool Chasers as part of their live tour at the International Pool Spa and Patio Expo in New Orleans.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. We want you guys to come out, take a look at it, see what it's all about. Make sure you go to the show because that's where we learn, that's where we get educated, that's where we all get to meet as a group, and it's really going to be a good time. So come on out and see us. We'll be in New Orleans with the Pool Chasers. It's going to be awesome.
See you there.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today in episode 69 of the Pool Chasers Podcast. As always, our mission is to help educate and inspire in the form of a podcast. So, this man definitely does not need an introduction, but we'll give him one anyways. We had the pleasure of interviewing Harold from Orenda here in the studio, and we really enjoyed hearing his story. His experience running a service company really shows in all of what Orenda is doing. We used PR10000 and CB600 when we were running Brothers and always respected their products, especially since they are NSF certified, which Harold will touch base on in the episode. We love everything that Orenda is doing with the LSI Calculator, the new Orenda Academy, as well as the Orenda Start-Up. All of these things are great movements for the industry. We're very excited to share this episode with you, so let's jump right into it.
Thank you so much, Harold, for being with us here in the studio, all the way from Texas. We really appreciate you being here in the studio with us.
Well, you guys are change agents, and so am I. So I'm here because I think your mission is worth getting involved with, and a little peer pressure from my friend Javier Payan probably got me here too. So.
Well, if you're listening, Javier, thank you so much. We appreciate it once again. So maybe you could just introduce yourself to the listeners.
So I'm Harold Evans. I'm the CEO of Orenda Technologies, and my background is since 1984, I've been in the pool repair business, primarily in technical repair, underground leaks, electrical work, motors. We're a TICL licensed contractor in the state of Texas, which is a requirement these days. For those of you that are around doing electrical work without it, you're going to get in trouble. Get your training, go to your class with the people that help you get there and get licensed and join society and all the rules, like it or not, that you're involved with. But crazy thing is, it doesn't require a license to be a pool builder in Texas, which makes absolutely no sense. So
that's a little different.
We repair guys and gals have to be TICL licensed, but pool builders don't. So electrician needs to be licensed, the plumber that's putting the gas line in, and the P-trap needs to be licensed. But largely everything else is flying by the seat of their pants. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's where we live, and that's what the rules are. Right.
So we know that you're not somebody that likes to talk about themselves a whole lot. We've heard you on, different podcasts, and we know that, that's not, you care so much about the education and making sure that people are trying to better themselves in their companies and understanding, which we love that about you, to be really honest. And it shows through the Orenda product and apps and all the different things that you guys do. But maybe can you just share with us, how you and your family got into the pool industry? And we had a, great conversation prior to this. I'm really looking forward to hearing how, the first person in your family really just got into it.
Yeah, so my grandfather, come to find out, post facto, changed his name as a young person. My grandfather was born Andrew Valdrini, which, by the way, is not Irish.
Sounds Italian.
Sounds pretty Italian, doesn't it? Well, he changed his name, we don't exactly know when, from Andrew Valdrini to Neil Holmes, which is the name of my son. I named my son after my grandfather because I love my grandpa. He was my dad. My dad had multiple sclerosis, and so my substitute player was this great wise old man who was Andrew Valdrini that I thought was Neil Holmes. But he was an electrician. He worked for the PG&E, was out at a substation in the middle of nowhere, and became a licensed electrician in the packing sheds in Northern California outside Stockton. And I, every day, wanted to get in the truck and ride with my grandpa. And he had the patience of Job. I did the same thing with my oldest son. I answered the same question, and just like my grandfather did, that kept being asked. but I learned how to be a pretty ace electrician. And so I didn't know I would end up doing electrical work, and I certainly didn't know that I would be in the pool business. But early on, it became clear that the fear aptitude category in pool repair was electricity. And you had high and low voltage, and using the tip of your finger was not a good way to figure out how to troubleshoot electricity. And I found that as I actually mentored with a fellow that was a pool repair guy, Mitch, who's still around. He's about to wind down. But Mitch taught me how to troubleshoot air leaks and do the things that I did early on, but I had the electrical base aptitude that Grandpa had given me. And I feel like that was the big credibility item for the pool surgeon in the early years, was that we were ace electrical people. We weren't afraid of it. We understood it. And we operated by the National Electric Code and not by what somebody had told us in the showroom of a wholesale house. So we were operating by the rules. And in those days, there wasn't a requirement to be licensed. So a lot of things could have happened that could have ended wrong, and it does still to this day. GFIs that get wired wrong and people electrocuted, and things that could be avoided that aptitude could save lives. So I was pretty serious about trying to make sure that the wiring in swimming pools was safe for people, and they were bonded properly, and that was our sort of original platform, and a high percentage of our business was other people's business. So we were fixing pools for a lot of different companies in the Dallas market for a lot of years.
What drew you to the pool industry then? So you were doing electrical work, right? Well,
I wasn't doing electrical work. That was just growing up with Grandpa. And, I just thought it was just going to be another thing in life that I understood. And when I got out of school, I went to work in the hospital supply business and did my year and a half of thinking I could be the president of that company and could change it, and leaving the industry and going into the wholesale distribution business in industrial supplies, pipe valves and fittings, and pipeline business. And every time I did better and was more successful, I had to travel further from home. And my dad had MS when I was a little boy and died very young. And his legacy to me was he just wanted to be able to stand up once in a park and throw a ball with me. So his problem became my quest in life. My gift was to be there for my kids. And every time I was doing better in business, in this wholesale business, I had more responsibility, as away from home longer. And I woke up one day and said, I'm going to be the greatest absentee dad in the world, and everything I thought that my dad could have done, I can't do under this structure. So I had a friend of mine that was in the landscape maintenance business that knew some apartment people and said, hey, you want to get in the chemical business, selling these people chemicals? I thought, sure, why not? And so I loaded my garage up with a couple of 1,000 pounds of Cal Hypo and trichlor. Ruined everything in it that year. My Honda frame was pretty rusted up, and the margins weren't much to sing about. So that was a short-lived stint. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute, knucklehead, you know how to fix things electrically, and everybody you talk to, they don't know what to do. They're afraid of it or whatever. So serve up the pool surgeon. So the pool surgeon was established back in '84, and it was sort of a satirical attempt to knock around doctors that thought they knew everything, because we were the guys that knew everything about pools. So why wouldn't we be a pool surgeon? Surgeons seem to know what they're doing. So
Did you ever have a client that was a surgeon?
I had a lot of them, and it was sort of meant to put them in their place to some extent.
So do you think you can really call yourself the pool surgeon?
Yeah. So what's a pool surgeon? Somebody that knows what they're doing, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. I'll tell a funny story about that. I had a thoracic surgeon for a customer that walked into his backyard to his wife's chagrin. He had 13 or 14 all black wires in this maze of electrical going to the pool equipment. So every single wire, for those of you who don't understand that, you don't want one color of wire doing everything in a box in 12 or 13 or 14 different directions. And he decided to stick his screwdriver in the box to fool around, and he arced the side of the box, and every good electrician has an arced screwdriver to prove it when you thought it wasn't hot, and it was. And his wife saw that. She saw the smoke come out of that box, and she said, your hands are worth millions of dollars, you knucklehead. Pull your pull that screwdriver out of that box. We're calling the pool surgeon. So we came out and we rid the pool of all of its black wire, at least part of it, and rewired it for him. And it's working. I assume it's still working today. I don't know.
Right. So is a pool surgeon, that company, is it still around?
Yes. Yeah. I'm still the chairman of the board of the pool surgeon, chairman of the board of Orenda. My family's transitioning. I'm not as involved in the day-to-day of it because Orenda largely takes it all of the time I have. That and my desire to make sure I get my bucket list fulfilled at 64 of traveling a little bit in between. So I'm day-to-day, we're operated by family still. My daughter-in-law, my sons, my son-in-law, we're thick as thieves with family in our business. It's not all family, but there's a great number of family members in our company still to this day.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
So how did Orenda come into the picture?
Well, so Orenda came about really solving problems. We were putting a unnamed product in a pool that we didn't know had phosphates in it, and our customers were taking samples to the local retail store, and they were telling us there was a lot of phosphates in the water, and we didn't know why. So I started nosing around and asking questions, and came to realize that I was doing it, that I'd actually instructed my son, trying to be the best of what we did in a startup, to put a phosphonic acid-based product at startup. Started asking questions and nosing around, and a fellow, I think it was actually Del Ozone at that time, had a combination unit, and Jeff Jones, who's still in the business, a friend of mine, said, call this old guy Dick Kersey and talk to him. And so I called him, and he started, scientist head, I'm a pool guy. He started telling me about why I was having problems and kind of made me mad. So I called the manufacturer that did it to me. He didn't call me for a long time. And that was the start of the rest of my life and a career. Nothing worse than a mad pool guy that doesn't get an answer, or pool person. It's not a guy thing. So some months later, he finally called me back after I'd done all my research. I asked him if he was George Bush because he hadn't called me for 3 months. I figure he's a real busy guy trying to be funny. I said, are you George Bush? Well, what are you talking about? I said, well, I called you 2 months ago. Why are you just calling me back? Well, I'm a busy guy. I'm a busy guy too. So anyways, we got into the good and the bad, which is nonsense, of good phosphates and bad phosphates. Mine are good, of course. No phosphates are best. And Kersey had a solution, Mr. Kersey, who's probably in his 90s now. And he wanted me to fool around with it and try it. And quite frankly, I was busy running a business, and I didn't act as quickly as he wanted me to. So finally, I tried them. I said, man, these products are amazing. They really work. And by the way, they're still the same core products, which is crazy. So I said, why aren't you selling these to the pool industry? And he said, well, I don't really like people. I said, well, I like people. I'm not much of a scientist. In fact, my story for science is a pretty embarrassing one. I had to repack shotgun shells in biology class in high school to get a C. Who'd believe I'd be in the science business? But you learn what you got to learn for reasons you have to. But I'm very grateful that he let me pack shotgun shells, because relying on my math ability and science ability at that time would have been a losing proposition. So I got a sympathy vote, and he let me do extra credit projects and pack shotgun shells to get my grade. But
we
anyway,
need to hunt down that teacher. Let him know who you become.
He died of cancer at a young age, unfortunately, so you won't find him. But he was a good guy and kind of a mentor guy in a lot of ways too. And he made me do science. I don't want to make it sound like all I had to do was pack shotgun shells in Texas and leave, because it was a California story anyway. But
so did he develop a company? It was called Orenda, or he never even got it that far?
Orenda was developed by Dick Kersey 30 years ago. He is a super smart science guy. And so basically I said to him, I'll be the puppet, you be the puppeteer. You teach me what this stuff is and help me understand it. The stuff works, so we'll figure out how to bring it to market. So every time that I didn't understand something, I'd call him and he'd parrot to me what to do, and it was authentic. And so I entered into an agreement with him to be he owned the company. I didn't own the company at that time. He essentially paid me a commission of the margin to bring the products to market, and I was in charge of marketing it, and he was in charge of packaging it and developing it. So I guess about 12 or 13 years ago, he was in his 80s, and I wanted to take it to another level, and he didn't. And so I said, how about, I buy the assets of this company and I go do it the way I want to do it. And he said, I'm all in. I'm tired. Just soon get a residual check instead of having to wake up to bottling questions. And so I bought the assets of the company and started buying tanker loads instead of 55-gallon drums of stuff. And here we are today. Pretty good-sized company, bottling in a couple of markets and shipping all over the world.
Right. And that's got to be, I can't even imagine what that takes to manufacture and the bottling process and all the, you'll probably learn more about codes being a part of that and probably bringing some of that into the pool industry.
Well, it was kind of interesting. So my NSF story is I was at a trade show, and a public health official from Oklahoma, Susie Campbell, who's a great gal, she's now retired, she took me over to the NSF booth at a trade show, and I thought, what am I going to ever need with NSF? I'm just this pool chemical guy. Met a guy named Sung Cho, who's still know him, still works there. He's a great guy, super smart guy. And it was one of those drive-by howdy doodies. I'll probably never talk to you again and have a reason to. And the more I got to thinking about it, as a small company, how was I going to level the playing field with big companies, right? And NSF is an amazing organization I have great respect for. I'm actually a part of the joint committee now, but I'm a huge believer in the NSF because essentially what NSF does is test for purity, make sure that the claims you make about your products are authentic and verifiable and auditable. And a lot of the products that are sold in our industry are not. And so if I decide to buy a bunch of super sacks of whatever from whoever in the fourth world or third world or second world or wherever, I can put it in a bottle, call it good, and tell you that it does what it does, and nothing stops me from doing that. So if there's a little lead in it, don't worry about it. If it's melamine and it's baby formula, don't worry about it because nobody's checking it. Nobody knows if it's pure. Nobody knows if there's toxics in it.
So that standard is like optional. Oh, it's not a standard, but that's like...
Well, it is a standard. And it was optional. And I thought to myself, how am I going to level the playing field and be on parity with bigger companies? And the NSF was my idea, and I'm grateful to them for that I could have parity with people that were much more successful and bigger than we were because our products could be trusted. And I think it's a very trusted mark. They're not for sale. They don't allow you to manipulate their outcome. They're very tough. You agree to letting them audit your books. They come in and quite frankly, helped us become better manufacturers with best practice and lot numbers and all kinds of things to make you better. That if you don't meet that mark, they take the mark from you. So it's a pretty sacred thing, and they audit you. And if they catch you doing things that you claim to be otherwise, you get a warning. And if you do it again, you can't have it again.
And you speaking of your NSF stamp and, the quality of the products, why we chose to use Orenda in the first place with our business, but amongst other things. But can you let's focus on just Orenda for a little while, and can you talk about Orenda's philosophy, what you guys believe in?
I think we're over-treating pools. I think that we're putting things, in some cases guessing, in other cases educated guess, of strategies to maintain water quality and chemistries. And there's a lot of things that are being sold in our industry that are masking problems and not getting to the core. We want to change the way the world thinks about water. That's our tag. And what that tag means is I like to get, I'm a political economist by training. And so I always like to know why things happen, not the supply-demand curve, but what's manipulating the supply and demand. If there's 4 people providing a service across the world, the lack of competition may be why you're paying something for something and why it's working. And I think that same phenomena holds true in all transactions. When you look at water chemistry and you look at the things we're putting in the water, I think some things we're putting in there because somebody told us to. Some things we're putting in there trying to overcome a condition that may not be the cause. It may be a symptom of a problem, but not the problem. And at Orenda, we're all about getting to the root cause of dysfunction in water. And first of all, we're huge believers in sanitation, and most of the products that try to undermine the use of sanitation is irresponsible, in my opinion. Saying you're a chlorine-free pool is a risky proposition. I think you risk hurting people, and that's irresponsible to do that because things happen fast in water. Water are what we call vectors or traveling mechanisms. There's a lot that can happen in a water in a very short period of time. And the hotter the water is, the faster it happens. Now, in corrosion management, it's the opposite. When you look at the LSI, it's low temperature that causes damage, not high temperature. But in bacteria management and safety for water quality, high temperature makes it more difficult to accomplish that. So we believe that you need necessary sanitation. You need to LSI balance your water. And there's things that we're managing in the water. For example, let's take the conversation for superchlorination. It takes a monster amount of sanitizer to superchlorinate. And in some cases, if you don't get to the right levels, you get no benefit, just more products being bought. And your problem, in some cases, get worse. In fact, an air quality issue, it'll actually get worse. And Chip Blatchley, he's going to be talking, I'm sure, this week at the World Aquatic Health Conference, he usually does. More sanitizer in the water causes more disinfection byproducts, which is a monster. Disinfection byproducts in indoor pools is the concussion of football to swimming. You get carried away, you cannot superchlorinate an indoor pool safely. And so if you've got a contaminant loading in that water, what do? You can use non-chlorine shock. You can use enzymes to get some of that organic demand out of the water so that the sanitizer can do its job. But the more accumulated waste there is in the water, the more disinfection byproducts happen. And then if you elevate it through superchlorination there, it's very dangerous. So it's not indicated by anybody I know that would authorize superchlorination in indoor, and it's done all the time. So we like to think about the things that we bring to the party that can help prevent the need for over-sanitation or over-treatment by prophylactically looking at removing known contaminants in the water or things that make it more difficult to have lower levels of sanitizer, which is ultimately what we all really want. The least amount of sanitizer with the safest water. That's the goal for everybody, I think, or should be. So we're in the enzyme business because it does amazing things to remove carbon waste and body waste from water so that now the necessary sanitizer demand can be influenced. And it's just a much more efficient, less expensive way to manage something in a less wasteful way that lays in the water and waits for bather waste to come off the body. And so when you smell like chlorine, it's the chloramines on your skin that smell. And so if you start taking the source of the chloramination reaction, that smell goes away because you don't have the waste in the water causing that smell to stay behind on your skin or in the air. So we believe in the use of enzymes, especially in commercial pools, but every pool benefits from the presence of enzymes. And by the way, it's not just bather waste, it's air, it's the natural things in our atmosphere. Just because people are not swimming in a pool doesn't mean temperature and the demands for sanitation aren't there. Granted, a bunch of kids in a pool makes it worse. But the point is that we believe in putting things in the water that prevent the need for overtreatment and overreaction. So most good chemical people do things gradually, not radically. And we at Orenda believe in preventative, controlled manner of treatment, trying to get as many things out of the water to begin with. So we actually get more out of the water than we put in. Hopefully it's in the filter or it's off gas in the form of carbon dioxide or whatever. Or we put phosphate control in the water to try to get the nutrition out of the water. Now, there's some arguments in the industry about that. And some people argue that I believe in phosphate treatment because my wife needs somebody to get me out of the house, and selling phosphate control does that, but that's not true. It's pretty simple. It's the second number on a fertilizer sack. And if you're telling me that you're going out today to treat your pools and the skip-de-doo-dah, you're going to add a bunch of phosphates to your pool just because you want to make sure that the water feels good, it would be a knucklehead move, right? So whether we're doing it purposefully or unintentionally, adding phosphates to the mix just makes our life more complicated. And so think of not fertilizing water as a good thing. And we're trying to maintain the absence of plant life in water. So if you're fertilizing your yard, you want plant life to grow. If you're not fertilizing your pool for a reason. So adding it artificially seems not a great strategy for me. And getting it out, I think by your own experience and by thousands of others, phosphates coming out of the water makes your life easier.
Absolutely.
Can you explain just what an enzyme is exactly? Just because I know you've already said it quite a bit. And just for any listeners that might be new to the industry, you can just kind of share that. I think you might be the best person to talk about that.
Well, this is the same guy that had to pack shotgun shells in science. So I'm going to preface my explanation with my skill set. So in a nutshell, essentially what we're doing is we're catalyzing and trying to, enzymes basically have a food group they're going after in the water, and those are common, and it's cleaving carbon. So carbon waste, your body waste, has a carbon chain. And essentially what enzymes do is cleave carbon chains. They divide and conquer. And if we could do it, there's an actual video on our app that is an oil demonstration where we squirt WD-40 in a bowl and you can witness the off-gassing of the carbon. So you see the actual catalyzation of the carbon chain. And essentially when the carbon chain has nothing to hold together, it falls apart. And then the carbon converts to carbon dioxide. So a great working enzyme, which, by the way, can look like surfactants and enzymes in some ways behave very much the same. So Dove liquid, you hear people talk about it. They squirt it in their pools sometimes. It's designed to disperse things, okay? When we had the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico some years ago, that was a surfactant that was sprayed on that oil slick that unfortunately made the oil heavier than water because oil is lighter than water. And it's sitting at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico in probably the same form it was the day it went down. It just made the oil heavier and made it sink to the floor. So it's coating the floor of the ocean. And it's not, if it were enzymatically removed, it would actually be converted to carbon dioxide and be gone. So surfactants will spread things around, cause things to sink. I can make things sink or spread or whatever I want with a surfactant. So if you look at how a surfactant behaves, it's kind of a wow factor. It goes, man, it's, everything's partying. But the question is it going into your filter? Is it sinking to the floor? At Orenda, our enzyme gets rid of the carbon, period. And that's what that demonstration shows you. When you're done, it's not on the bottom of the bowl. You can see it bubbling away. So removing the carbon makes your filters work better. It makes the system function better. It helps control the necessary sanitizer in the pool and takes it away from its distraction on the core. So when you look at it, it's essentially an aid that impacts the oxidant demand in the water. So the stuff that gets in the way of sanitizer killing stuff quick is being removed, and the enzyme is targeted to accomplish that removal. It's also the most expensive part of the cost of a product. And I hear people, put a dosing amount, and quite frankly, in my opinion, there's a lot of products that are being underdosed and some that are being overdosed. But it's difficult to know exactly what the dose should be with enzymes because you've got demand issues, you've got bather load issues, you've got temperature, you've got levels of sanitizer, you got splash, you got a lot of things that are difficult to factor into a dosing. So it's not really a guess, but there is some approximation involved in what stays behind because enzymes by themselves don't die. Let me back up. They're not alive in the first place, okay? So there are some enzymes in the industry that are living enzymes, and they would never make NSF certification because living products could potentially hurt people because some people are allergic to living things that you don't want in the water. So if you're NSF certified in an enzyme, you don't have anything living in your enzyme. There are products that are even told to be living. I wouldn't want my grandchildren swimming in a pool that had a living product in it because of the risk of it being allergic or reactive. So essentially, when you create an enzyme, you create a secretion, and that secretion mimics a reaction. So I don't want to get terribly crazy about what the science is, but the bottom line is that you don't have a living enzyme. It's not like you take a probiotic and it starts putting all this bacteria in your tummy and that helps you digest food. It's different than that. But it conceptually does some of the same things. Enzymes in your stomach help break foods down and help you metabolize better. And so essentially what an enzyme does when it's working, and I'd like to think ours work as good or better than any in the industry, they're ridding the pool of oxidant demand so that we can get on about the business of killing bacteria with our necessary sanitizer.
Thank you.
We want to thank Pentair for supporting the show. You know, as a podcast for pool professionals, we know that when you sell products, it's your reputation on the line. And when they are Pentair products, it's theirs as well. That's why Pentair's got your back with their trade grade program, which supports your business and reputation by offering exclusive tools and support for lead generation, attractive product rebates and longer warranties, and an unmatched expertise when it comes to accurate equipment selection, setup, and service. So to learn more about how trade grade protects, empowers, and helps your business grow, visit pentair.com/trade grade. That's pentair.com/trade grade, or click the link below.
I'm curious, if you had to take over a route and it was, 10 pools a day, Monday through Friday, and you know everything you do know now, how would you test every single one of those pools? And what factors would there be for you to change that test?
Well, that's the hard part. So in our classes, we teach this all the time. Aggressive water is some of the best looking water in the world. Some of the worst maintenance people on the planet have the most aggressive water, and their customers love them. Their water pops. I went to India, and I didn't see a pool above 6 pH, and the water sang, but the kids had rashes. So what I would say to anyone out there that's out becoming a professional, or you've been doing this a long time like I have, test. Don't assume anything. Don't go on your hunch. Don't go on the past. Don't guess it. Don't wing it. Test it. There's 600 plus combinations of balanced LSI. And so just get in the habit, man. It's just good practice to always test. And then in the case of our app, it's a get out of jail card. If you've got a balanced LSI and you show it, and you push the results with the push button on our email, the results, it's date stamped what you did and what the chemistry was. That's a big deal. And just because you have 3 different colors of pen and you decide the days of the week you change the ink color, that you put down the same numbers you put for weeks or just play with it, it's a mistake. Test every pool authentically. Do not cut corners. I'm not a strip person. I think strips are less than accurate, and if you want to talk yourself out of the job, then make it easy so the homeowners see no value in what you're doing and there's no aptitude. That's my big bone to pick with the industry. If you find a shortcut that you think makes you work quicker, is it the best? Are you producing the most authentic, the most reliable information out there? And are you making yourself more valuable than the homeowner that could do this themselves? Let's face it, they can do it. There's plenty of information out there. A great number of the people that come to Orenda online are homeowners trying to understand. A lot of them have driven you all out there in the service trade to change your habits, and I'm grateful for that. But the reality is that we wing it. And one of the great things about water chemistry that I've come to understand is if you're consistent and systematic, it's easier. If you're, a okie dokie, kind of winging it, toss a little, put a tab in a feeder and do whatever you did last week and get out of there and buzz it, life gets more complicated. The accumulated inaction that you should have created over those weeks, it hits you all at once and the pool flips on you. And then you wonder why you're in the pickle you're in. So create good practices, create consistent behavior, don't skip processes, and have methods to me, the way I always did it in my world is I am kind of outspoken person, right? So for me, I never wanted to make a really stupid mistake because I didn't want one of my competitors to come along and trash me. So I kind of always said to myself, the guy that doesn't like me is watching me. Am I doing something that he can make fun of? Could he ridicule? Could he criticize me, he or she? And if so, why am I doing it? So be your own guide. Make sure that if you don't know, that you learn. Come to Orenda Academy. You can have free education. You can learn whatever you want to learn. Others are doing the same thing more and more. I think we've monetized training more than we should, and I think it's unfortunate. And I think our problem in our industry, that's the largest problem we face, is we don't have enough trained people in this business. And if it costs $10,000 to train to become a pool person and you're going to make 30 grand, who's going to sign up for that? So we've got to, at the grassroots level, educate our consumers so that they know that our practices are sound, begin to train our up-and-coming people in the industry, and continue to evolve and educate at a higher level and raise the bar. As we've all said, low tide creates stuck boats. High tide allows for the river to flow. So as we raise the tide, the benchmark of our industry raises. The same reason technical people that do repairs make more money than people that maintain swimming pools generally. So, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of us that are butchering maintenance that could change the way we do things and create a lot more value in our businesses. And we're trying to make ourselves so fast at what we do. I don't mean to criticize, but I've never figured out how you can clean more than 60 pools a day if you're really good.
A week?
A week, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
60 pools a week.
I was like, oh my God, who do you know that?
And then you wonder why, people don't think they're getting anything for what they're paying for. And I think, having a sound practice, having a defendable strategy, having records that are contemporaneous and accurate, date-stamped records, not you winging it when you go to a clock box and write a number in there and you didn't do a test. Because nowadays with cameras and people at home, they see you anyway. So just assume there's a cam on your shoulder watching you all the time, and behave and do what you think is right. And if you don't know what's right is, go find out what right is. And if you're an employer or an employee, the same rules hold. And let's make sure we're providing better services every day, because we have a confidence breach in our industry in general. We have a consumer gap problem that our customers don't trust us as much as they should. And some of it isn't fair and some of it is. The only way I know how to combat that is to just do the best I know how to do. And if I think I'm doing something in a substandard way, go get the information that makes me better. Today you can go online, you can learn anything you want to learn. When I first started in the pool industry, I had to leave Texas, get on an airplane, and go to Southern California for training. Calypso, I don't know if you old grays out there remember, but that was the only place you could get really solid multiple day training. And now you can get it anywhere you can get it online, you can get it at trade shows. So the access to this information and aptitude is increasing now. And quite frankly, I think every day we're getting further away from what I call the classroom of the lobby of the wholesaler. No disrespect, because I'm a gray, but just because you've been doing something for 35 years doesn't mean it's right. You might have made a mistake the first year you started in the pool business, and every 5 years you kept doing the same thing, and 7 intervals of 35 is 35 years of mistake. So why are you doing what you're doing? Is it because you heard about it, or is it because you went to a training class and you were told by the manufacturer this is how it's done? Are you replacing original equipment parts and not assuming the responsibility of owning a heater because you make a decision to buy a cheaper part that's not part of the original equipment of that heater? Those are all the considerations that nobody thinks about until they're explaining themselves to a lawyer. So,
but we get tunnel vision on bad habits. I don't know how this happened, but there was 2 probably nights within the last week. I watched a Steve Jobs movie, and there's a pretty cool part where they're like showing towards the end that there was all these things that were happening, and he was so focused on what he was trying to do that he didn't pay attention to what was really happening. He just it was just very blurry, and he saw what he wanted to see. But when he got to reflect on it, it was like, shit, like I messed that up. I missed that, And I think a lot of us do that, where it's like, somebody might be trying to tell you what's right, but you're so tunnel vision on wanting to keep doing it the same way because change is change. Most people don't like change, because that means not only do I have to change, but my office has to change, my techs have to change. My repair division has to change. Everybody's got to change. Like, is it really worth it? And most people don't think that it is, you know?
Well, I've always, I'm ADD, so like my brain's changing by the nanoseconds. So I like change. That's why, I'm not a good pool cleaner, because I don't like doing the same thing all the time. I like mixing it up. I like dealing with different people all the time. But I see change as a positive. But I agree with you. I think most people are fearful of change, and certainty trumps uncertainty, and change is to some extent uncertainty. Back to what we were talking about earlier, I think the challenge moving forward is that training is going to evolve exponentially in the next 5 years. We're going to have a wealth of training that's going to change our industry. Evidenced by the fact that tomorrow and the next day we've been asked to come to Penn Air University and teach water chemistry. That's a major fundamental shift in the industry that I give Penn Air some credit for. Other manufacturers have done the same thing. We're actually going to come in and talk about the leading cause for warranty failure, which is LSI violation, and the millions of dollars that are wasted. But forget the money. What about the bad will about a malfunctioning product and the consumer message that comes across? It's a very negative thing. And so just because it's not covered under warranty and doesn't mean it's good. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. I bought a couch, paid a lot more money for it than I probably should have. It was probably a knockoff piece of junk, like a lot of the stuff that's being made in high production factories across the country. And I bought the extra warranty thinking I was a smart person. 3 years to the day, I'm sitting in this chair. It's the place I like to plop. And it looks disfigured. And my wife, kind of being who she is, peels it open. And it's just like the seam this is leather furniture. So the seam where they tied the leather together was just like a piece of perforated paper on a tablet. And it was torn perfectly where it was seamed. And I thought, that's a defect in how the product was built. So I called the manufacturer and I called my supposed suppliers, a furniture company I'll never buy another thing from. And they came out and looked at it and they said, well, that's not a defect. Your warranty that you bought, so if I put a pin in my pocket and stab the leather, it's covered. If I sit my rear end down on the chair and it decides to tear where it was sewn together, that's considered wear and tear, and they're not going to cover it. So I thought, okay, so what they did is they pre-perforated by stitching and created an imperfection in the leather by stitching it, and that's exactly where it tore, just like a perfect tear. And that's what's not covered. So my furniture guy is clapping his heels because he didn't have to pay for it. The warranty's clapping his heels because he didn't pay for it. Most of the warranties that are produced in most industries are not based on what they think is going to fail. They're based on things they think are going to last that long or better. We do the same thing in the pool industry. But if the consumer comes away with a failure, their perception is that the person doing it and the product is inferior, and they develop a bad attitude about it. So preventing things from happening, warning people and instructing people about how processes work, and products performing properly in accordance with expectation creates consumer confidence. And just because it doesn't cost you any money to enforce a warranty doesn't mean you've created a great customer, because your customer is unhappy with you. Now, I'm not the person that's going to go online and rip these people the way I probably should. I'm just going to quit buying from them. And so when you look at our industry, there's a lot of people, home protection policies and other things they think they buy that things aren't covered they think should be. We did warranty work for many years, and I just found that it was like trying to deal with a do-it-yourself, or a do-it-yourself person doesn't necessarily respect the fact I trained to do what I'm doing. Therefore, they devalue how important what I'm doing is. And a home protection policy isn't designed to develop customers. It's designed to, well, I don't think it is. So at the end of the day, why was I doing home protection work? To develop a base of customers that were angry because something wasn't covered and they never wanted to be my customer again? Mm-hmm. So the challenge of our industry today is that we need more trained, high aptitude people to create more confidence and better products that we know how they work. It isn't whether they can buy something online. It's that hopefully that customer says, I don't want anybody but the pool surgeon, and I don't want anybody but Cecil because that guy is 60 years old and he knows what he's doing, and I wouldn't think to not let somebody else come in here and disrupt that. So the challenge for our service companies and our employees out there is to make yourself valuable, communicate with your customers openly, and let them know what you're doing and why, and so that you can develop a rapport, because most of the time you don't know you're going to have a conflict with somebody until you have it. And so if you haven't developed equity with that relationship of trust, at that moment the distrust button comes on. And no matter whether you're telling the truth or not, they don't believe you. So I think we've got to plan for the future and realize that the more we openly talk to our customers about conditions, don't tell a customer after something's gone wrong what happened, because they're generally thinking it probably has something to do with you and not the product that you're talking about. So if you think you're going to have algae, in July, talk about it in April. Don't talk about it in July, because in July they're going to think it's because you're a bad pool person. But in April, you're warning them that if you don't do a treatment, that there could be a problem down the road. Now you're in the range of believable. So if we communicate these things with our customers earlier, then they believe us. We're still telling the same truth whether we did it then or now, but we're developing a trust relationship that allows us to be the only person they want in the backyard.
Right, and you're being proactive instead of reactive, which is what we've preached for a long time, trying to explain things up front to them, telling them, trying to fix problems before they happen, not in the heat of the summer when you need your pump or your heater or things like that, or in the wintertime when you want your heater, when you need that, like you should be fixing it before that, not during the heat of the time or the heat of the season when you're going to use that, right? And I think even your products, Orenda products themselves, you guys, I've heard you say it plenty of times. You guys believe in being proactive, and that's what the enzymes do and the phosphate remover does. You're being proactive and trying to keep things out of the water so that those problems don't occur, right?
Heaping more things in the pool isn't a positive goal. Right. Preventing things from happening is who we are as a company, and we're generally never going to get involved in products that are reactive products. Generally, it's just not my interest. It's not that they're bad or that you shouldn't do them. It's just not where my head is.
Yeah, there's a reason to use both, but that we really liked your guys' products for that reason, is they were preventative, and we've really tried to train our customers on being preventative. So incorporating things like enzymes from, if you can do it weekly maintenance, whatever you guys recommend in your bottle, but if you can do that proactively, it saves that customer, like you were talking about, where you're becoming that go-to person rather than the person they look to that caused the problem.
This is Randy Angel with Randy Angel Designs in Dallas, Texas. As a designer of outdoor living, one of the things I enjoy most is working with incredible industry partners such as Ledge Lounger. I'm always looking for new and exciting products to include in my design presentations that will set my designs apart from the competition. With Ledge Lounger's 3D files available for all their product lines, I can create my spaces around the specific pieces I have in mind for the project. From their more well-known in-water product lines to their new outdoor furniture and games, it's as easy as drag and drop, and my clients get to see my vision with clarity. And do you know what I've come to realize? The more clearly I can present the vision, the more focused my clients are on completing the project as designed. And this means an added revenue stream for my company as we complete more and more Ledge Lounger purchases. Download 3D design resources for Ledge Lounger's full collection at ledgeloungers.com/cat.
Well, why don't we just kind of jump into the products a little bit? Can you kind of maybe just walk us through the list of products Orenda offers and just a little bit about them?
It's grown a little bit over the years, not much. So, yeah, we can talk about it.
So that, being able to understand, like I talked about earlier, walking down a trade show aisle and seeing Orenda, you don't know what it is, but, you've heard about it or somebody said something about it, but just really kind of understanding what you guys offer. It doesn't have to be super detailed on each one, but kind of just what the names are and what they're
I think
designed
the
to do?
flagship product that everybody talks about the most is PR10000. It continues to be the Mac Daddy of its space. And, basically it's a domestic product harvested in Mountain Pass, California. We were using foreign products at one point in time before me. And we were constantly fighting purity issues and contamination issues and authentic, whether the tests that were provided to us were actually a reflection of the products. And we just said, hey, if we can find a domestic source, I'm not going to go through this every time of wondering what I'm getting. Sure. So we made the decision, and then we entered into an agreement, and we have a contract to provide for the industry out of that mine. And it's been a really good thing. It's not a cerium. It is cerium based and not lanthanum based. Some people don't know that. I think cerium is remarkably more reactive, and it is NSF certified. And to my knowledge, I'm unaware of any other phosphate control that's NSF certified. So that's the phosphate remover. That's the one that gets us the most attention. I think that's what's the basis for our strong reputation.
Sure.
CV600, we have also 700. 700 was produced because there was a competing product in the industry that had a combined product. I don't really like doing that. I prefer that you buy an enzyme only and put in a phosphate control when you need it, not as a regular basis, because with intelligent pumping, adding a precipitous forming product in an intelligent pump can cause back pressure issues. I'd rather see it done in a controlled manner, usually before filter clean, and then not do it all the time, and then just use 600 with regularity. SC1000 is probably was the diamond in the rough that we actually had a customer to determine what it did, and it's our whole startup story, which we haven't talked about, which is probably the largest shift in consumer behavior that we've seen since I've been doing this.
Yep.
The new Orenda Start-Up and the barrel and the things we're doing about that. But, we tripped across the fact that our SC1000 allowed us to overtreat a pool. When you're adding calcium to a pool from the get-go, you don't always have like 200 parts controlled to the end. It's going to vary. And a chelant like SC1000 allows us to put it in the calcium and in the pool to stop it from forming scale as it fills so that the water's calcium rich and we don't get dusting in the pool. And it's remarkable what that has done to change startup.
Yeah, that's huge.
I honestly believe it will be the fundamental largest shift of behavior that we've influenced in the pool industry since I've been doing this. So SC1000 is a non-hazardous, non-toxic, NSF certified chelant. It is not made in America. It's actually a European product. And it is really amazing science. It essentially isolates the calcium molecule. A sequestrant tends to cluster things and pull them out. A chelant keeps things isolated, so the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand, if you will, so they can't bond. So it keeps the molecules separated, and that's what causes the formation of scale, is the binding of calcium molecules. So essentially it divides and conquers and allows for us to have a nice, comfortable level of calcium in the water, and its chelation allows for it not to form scale in conjunction with an LSI treatment. So an evolutionary product, which we talked about earlier, is the CE clarifier. Essentially I wanted it to do more than just clarify, so we put a trace amount of enzyme in it. It's not a substitute for the use of 600 on a weekly basis, but it's certainly better than nothing. So in some markets where you've got lower use, you can do a purge dose of a quart per 10,000 gallons of enzyme to get the season started. And then if maybe it's a lower use pool, go to the CE clarifier and a little bit of enzyme to help pop and get the carbon out of the water and get it to clarify. So it's great with sand filters. It's great with cartridge filters. It's obviously less necessary with DE because DE screens at such a low level. It too is NSF certified. The CE spa clarifier is essentially formulated for aeration. Aeration is a challenge for enzymes. That's what causes them to foam sometimes. So there are some added things that we do with that product to get it to foam less, essentially, and to be used in a hot water environment, which has other challenges.
I don't think I knew that. That's cool.
Spa 500 is a purge and dump product, and it's a really cool product. People have really raved about how it's kind of like after you get your teeth clean and you run your tongue over your teeth and it feels squeaky. That's what that product does. It's not designed to swim in. It's NSF certified for dumping, not to swim in. So we put it in before we dump the spa. One of the critical things in where a lot of things are stored, the spa's in the air chamber. So be sure that when you're using this product, mix it up for a little while and then turn the pump off. Let this get into the air chamber and let it get some of the gunk out of the chambers, and then purge the water, get rid of it, and refill the spa. And I think you'll find that a lot of the infrastructure of spas holds a lot of nasties. And this is designed to strip the nasties out of the infrastructure, the stuff that's stuck to the pipes and that's in the system that helps kind of clear the deck. And we're probably all not draining our spas quite as much as we should. I think the average
Nobody does.
commercial spa should be drained weekly. I don't think there's any harm in draining, especially a high-use spa. Residentially, I wouldn't be against the idea of draining them once a month.
Right. Yeah, we try to do them every 3, but even that sometimes it's still not enough if they don't.
Yeah, so I mean, I think
using
that product, that 500 is a pretty neat product. We've had, when we put it on the test market with, critical thinking customers, they wanted us to get it on the market quicker than we brought it out, but we had to go through the NSF vetting and all the things we do to get it there, which it is. The tile cleaner we only provide commercially. It seems like that is the ultimate commodity product in the industry. And quite frankly, if you're using enzyme, you don't need much tile cleaner anyway, because that's part of what enzymes do is keep the tile clean. So we don't seek that business. You find it on the overstock counter at the wholesalers most of the time. We generally are selling that more to the commercial trade. So, we don't want to talk a lot about specific customers because that's a target for our competitors, but we stay busy in Las Vegas.
Sure.
We treat a lot of water in Las Vegas, where most of the nastiest bather loads exist out there.
Right.
And then lastly, you're asking, explain. They're all NSF certified. We'll never sell a product as a company that hasn't been exposed to the rigors of NSF. We just won't be in that business. Because philosophically, I don't want to sell anything that isn't. Sure. So that's sort of the neat thing I think about Orenda is it's a simple line. It's a line that's designed to get the phosphates out of a pool, manage the bather waste appropriately, control calcium, and allow us to manage LSI properly, and have really cool startups and find us having less plaster problems in general by the use of a chelate. It's funny, the service trade doesn't really see the importance of that. Pool construction and plaster companies do. But what I tell people about startup is if your pool is full, that is not a startup. The party was yesterday, the birthday cake is stale. If you don't control the water from the first moment of fill, then in my opinion, you're past the startup period and you're going to have the potential for problems. Yeah. And most of the products that are out there that deal with dust are essentially burning the dust and getting rid of the dust. And once the dust comes off the wall, then harm's been done.
Right.
Dust is evidence of failure. Dust is evidence that the surface was compromised. So we want to have a no dust for that reason.
Right. Well, I think pool service companies should definitely start paying more attention to that, and they will. That was one of the benefits about being around Greg Garrett so much, and I learned a ton about surfaces that I would have never learned before probably. Realizing that if you can take care of that from the very beginning, there's evidence of calcium being pulled from, if you have a slow fill, the color of the walls can be different based on how much it's pulling from the walls.
Well, the good news is
so much stuff it's super important and to be able to treat it from that point and not when the water's already in there.
I don't think there's any argument in the industry, and there's plenty of arguing going on about that fact.
Yeah. Well, there shouldn't be.
Well, I'm unaware if there is. Right. That's a renegade I'm unaware of. But any of the conventional thinking people, I think the main difference at Orenda is we believe that timing is the separation. So we think that sooner is better than later.
Sure. And
that once you've had it happen, I'm sorry if it's inconvenient for you to have to inform people when you're filling your pool and go through a little more trouble filling it differently, but you'll spend 100 times more time undoing what it does, and you'll realize that time was very minuscule in relationship to the amount of time you spend undoing the harm and explaining the problem. And what we've found is by going public with our videos, the consumers are changing the narrative for us. They are ultimately the judge and the jury of change. And I do hear people say, I don't want to do that because it's too much trouble. And I think to myself, if we told our customer that, they would probably never call us back, right? So back to that voice in your head, why are we doing what we're doing? I think we should be doing it because it's the best practice. And where we get into trouble is we get into a value discussion about the value of the startup or the plaster job or whatever, and we don't take the time to explain a process. If you tell somebody why you're doing something and what the process is, invariably it provides a roadmap for explaining why it is that you do what you do the way you do it. So I think the other problem for service that we're going to have to overcome is that because of flat rate, and I was one of the first people in the country to flat rate repair, I want to tell you that I think flat rate has outrun the coverage in maintenance today. I think we're going to have to rethink it. That's one of the reasons that I think trichlor stuck around longer. I think there's a lot of practices we would change if we weren't being negatively impacted by our costs. So we're commodity brokers. You know, the price of products have changed. They change from year to year, and a lot of us haven't changed our rates in 20 years, maybe 10, maybe 5. So I think we're going to have to rethink, and this is just a thought to put out there, why not tell the customer what the value of your time and service is and separate that? I know it's a little more trouble, I get it. But what ends up happening is you start not talking about sealant or sequestrant because the presumption is it's part of your service. So part of this is us rethinking, kind of informing people and communicating what goes into a pool. And this is what we do, and maybe it will work for others, but when you look at the shopping list of products that you put in a pool in the course of, let's say 3 or 4, 5, 6 months, and you say to your customer, here's the list. My labor is $25 a visit. Just picking a number. I don't know what it is. And these are the goodies that go in there. I know you think it's all profit. It's not. So far as I'm concerned, if you want to pay me $25 a week and you give me this shopping list of stuff in garbage cans or whatever out at the equipment readily available for me, let's go. Most customers look at that and go, wow, that looks like a lot of money. Well, it is. And they think, no, I'd rather have you do that. Well, now you're in a position that you can charge for what you put in the pool instead of what they expect the rate should be. And I'm going to tell you for sure that the average service customer thinks that service trip's all labor. Mm-hmm. They have no appreciation for how much those components cost. And if you're doing it the Orenda way, you've got sanitizer, you got pH adjusters, you got alkalinity adjusters, you got calcium to deal with, you got chelants to put in the water. There's a laundry list of things that affect the outcome here. And we've done a poor job of communicating the scope of what it is that we do because it's what we've done all our lives, and we just assume that people understand that's what we do. So back to that point of communication with people, let customers know what's involved in what you do. You can do that at startup. You know, I can tell you that most of the pools that come on service for us at startup do you think I'm doing all that? You say with a filter clean, come out and let me break a DE filter down for you sometime and do it right. Don't hose it down from inside the tank. Pull it apart, get the elements apart, lay them up against the fence. Which one goes where?
Right.
Demonstrate to them why it is that you're not a knucklehead. You're an amazingly well-trained person that knows what you're doing. And I don't think we do a great job of doing that. Part of that is maybe we think it's bragging. I don't know. Or maybe we don't want to take the time, or maybe we don't really like talking to people. I don't know what the reason is. But we've got to plan and put in the minds of our customers the scope of what we do. Everybody knows a doctor goes to school for a long time. Everybody knows that. But people think you can get in the pool business, in a whim. So we've got to do a better job of when that person's thinking about what they're going to cut or not cut. How in creation can a landscape maintenance company get more for a trip than we get? It's amazing.
I have no idea.
Well, I do. I mean,
I think the best thing
I understand, but
I think the best thing that seriously helped me understand a lot of this was that every time I needed to hire somebody to do something, I took a little bit more time to think about my process because we're all consumers. You need to think about it like that. Like, okay, if I need to have somebody come repair my garage door or do my landscaping, like, what am I thinking? Like, who should I call? I find the cheapest person. Find the da-da-da. Where am I going to find that person? Who am I asking on the internet? Who am I asking my neighbors? And once they get there, what am I looking for? And the really good ones that have gone in that have been in my home, what was it about them that I was willing to pay maybe a premium because they knew what they were talking about?
well, I think here's the thing. Everybody, not our customers, the whole world is watching video to learn. Okay, what stops you from getting your phone and having somebody stand there and show them what a filter clean looks like? We're doing that as we speak. What does it look like for you to do this? If a person visualizes all the things you do and you explain all the steps of what you're doing, it's not like that's proprietary. You need to worry about the customer getting in your head. You're just showing them there's quite a process here. This wasn't, Johnny come lately with a pencil in your day. So that's easy. Anybody could do that. Your wife, your friend can hold the phone and you just show them what a day cleaning a pool looks like. And they look at all that stuff that you do as a matter of factly. We aren't communicating the scope of our work. And when they see, and you tell them, I do this because of this, and I check your LSI because I don't want to ruin your pool plaster. And we don't do that. So they have no conception other than maybe a video camera in their backyard that they see people walking around. How easy is that? Anybody can do that. You can pick up your iPhone or your whatever phone you have and just show them what a typical day of cleaning a pool looks like. And you know what? If it's an extra hard pool, how about filming a really hard one? How about a 30,000-gallon pool with trees hanging over it and how long it takes to net it and the $1,000 piece of equipment they don't have that makes your job faster? Well, you got to amortize that investment. Go buy one of these $1,200 units and then you can do it as fast as me. So we need to do a better job of showing the scope of our effort. And it isn't like you got to have a degree in film to figure that out. Message with your customers. I just feel like what happens is we take our relationships for granted. Some of us are not real social, so we'd rather avoid people. But people deal with people they're familiar with. And if you communicate the scope of what you do and they're thinking about where to spend money, that video may be your get out of jail card that they would never think to do your job. I always tell people, come to the filter clean. Come see what a DE breakdown looks like. And let's just see if you're ready to go next time. Most of them that see it go, no thanks. Looks way too complicated to me. And, it's a good lesson for them to have a little filter band leak and, doesn't get it right back on together and the filter kind of pops apart when they're putting it together. That's all good relationship building experiences, because I'll guarantee you that person's not going to clean their filter again. What are we doing to create a moment of memory for our customer? A little thing. How many people let their equipment sets look like trash barrels and let things accumulate, fire hazards around heaters with leaves and all that stuff? What if we told them, hey, we're not in the landscape business. What stops you from having a little blower, an electric blower, not a gas one when you're back with your pool equipment, but how about a little electric blower where you just blow off the deck or blow off the equipment side or whatever, just a little value-added thing, and then tell them you did it. Hey, I noticed that's going to end up in my pool anyway. I mean, that's how you become more valuable. You want your customer to get to a point, I wouldn't think to let somebody else clean my pool. I wouldn't think to let somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. I don't really, everybody's got to make a living. Nobody really cares about our costs are, quite frankly. They don't care if gas went up or not. That's kind of our problem. But I think that if people see how involved things are, then maybe they have a different respect for what the value of that service is. I mean, when I see some of the costs for services in certain markets, it's depressing. At those rates, we're not going to replenish the necessary people to do this.
I think we also have to show people that we're worth that much. I still can't believe how many people are not investing in uniforms and tucking in your shirts and wearing a belt and all wearing maybe the same non-slip boots and the same color sun hats and sunglasses and things like that. And people might think, need to stop talking about this, but that is the one common thing that companies I deal with, and they're some of the most successful companies, they look the part. They're educated and they look the part. Simple as that.
Fake it till you make it. I think
they didn't come to my house in a cutoff or a ripped shirt with ripped shorts, 2 different color socks. And it doesn't even matter. Even if you're like, okay, like looking like, it's not that expensive to go get a UV protectant wickening shirt that's branded and, some Dickies or something, and all your team looks the same. You can not go crazy all at once, but there's stuff out there that you can do that's like under $50.
How about jump in the shower before you go to work in the morning?
That's a real good one.
I think that it's seen as a form of independence to do what you want, which is a misnomer in my view, but I think that's the origins of it. It's like, so you put no more thought into this day than you didn't think about what you were going to put on that morning, and it just kind of, that all the stuff you wanted to wear was in the laundry or whatever. I don't know. It is. It's a thoughtfulness that here again, you're going to be judged. I mean, whether people want to talk about it and admit it or not, people are constantly judging each other by appearance. And and quite frankly, we're invading people's spaces, and their sanctuaries, their home, and their backyard is part of that. And, never walk in a person's home unless you're required to because of repair. Always respect boundaries, visual and physical. And be in a non-threatening way. I think a lot of especially women that are home are intimidated by people that come into their home. And if you put off messages of uncertainty, then it makes them feel insecure. So why do it? It's and you could still be a knucklehead and not know what you're doing. I get it, but maybe that will begin to change your mindset too. How you think about the world.
Definitely.
A lot of times people need to really look in the mirror, when, a lot of things you talk about the forums, you'll see them talking about, why they can't charge a certain amount of money, or why this customer did that, or this customer treats me a certain way. Sometimes there's a reason for that, because you're not being who you're supposed to be. You're not being the professional. You didn't act the right way to them. You didn't do the things that you're supposed to do as a professional. And sometimes that leads to them reacting in that way. And, there was plenty of times where Greg and I looked at a conversation we had with a customer, and I was like, yeah, I should not have said that, because some of those times we lost customers because of it. And, the best thing you can do sometimes is just reflect on the reasons why stuff is happening. If it's the same repeat offense over and over, there's probably a reason for that. And, if you're not taking the time to look at yourself and look at your business and better both those things, then you're doing a disservice to yourself and the company, because you should be getting better all the time. Even if you run a successful company, there's still things that can improve. And, there's so many complaints in the forums about different things that I think could be solved by taking a step back and just looking at the way things are being done, and the customer would maybe see it in a different way.
Well, yeah, like spend more time working on your business than on Facebook.
Agree.
I spend too much time on Facebook, so I got my hand up on that one. I want to say this. Most problem customers that I've met over the years showed signs of being a problem long before they bloomed.
That's true, but it also might not be the customer every time.
Well, here's the thing I want to say about that, and then I'm going to go with this, and I feel strongly about this. I feel like as an owner of a company, it is not my job to defend my company and My job is to arbitrate a transaction of fair outcome. My job is to figure out what's good for the customer, what's good for my company, what's fair for everybody that's involved, and be objective about the things I could do better and that they could do better, and not be biased toward defending myself. I never found myself, and I still don't find myself feeling like I need to defend things. I think I need to understand things. And sometimes it's been my experience that a problem customer that's a bad pay or always objectional, it's the old 85-15 thing, right? 85% of your customers are happy, you're doing a good job. They're not necessarily going to be happy, or they are. And I think one of the things I did early on is I always answered the phone, and I always screened customers before they came into my business. And there's signs they put up. And I think a lot of times we get the sign and we overlook it for money, for cash flow. And it's like, this person has got all over their forehead, I'm going to be a problem customer, and you're not listening and watching. When my wife first started to take over the pools as Orenda became a bigger deal, she said, you're kind of harsh on your customers sometimes. I said, well, honey, I'm trying to figure out. You got to realize something. When a repair customer comes to you, they're very obedient, or they're as obedient as they're going to be because they need you, right? When you're going to find out is when it's time to get paid. Now, all of a sudden, they got what they want, problem solved. How does it go? And what's the nature of the transaction? How does it work? And I think the answer is that people, they teach you things. And you know what? You got to have the latitude, and this is something I try to mention every time I talk about the pool industry. Some customers are not investment-grade customers. Some customers need to be fired. And some employees need to be 100%. Fired, and some companies need to be fired. But the point here is, if you're a serial mean person, then one of my best referral customers in Dallas, she passed away a couple of years ago. She was always distrusting and always mean. And one day I said to her, Pat, party's over. You are always questioning my people. You're always questioning our integrity. We've given you no reason to think that. If you feel that way, we have to change our relationship. So I'm telling you today that if you come out and badger my people and are mean to them, we're going to not come out anymore. That lady referred me more customers, and she was the most kind, decent person on the planet, because I demonstrated the expectation of the transaction and balance. It wasn't all about me or all about her. It was about so as owners or even as workers, it's like, is this fair for everybody? I mean, is it okay what we're doing here? Did we go at this right? And if we did, or if we didn't, be objective about it. And I think that's the trust that over time, that some people you'll never earn that with. They'll always think you're trying to get in their pocket. And for those people, you're never going to please them. So we only have a defined amount of energy to deal with negativity in life. And if you hit one of those negative people first shot in the morning, man, it makes a tougher day. Yeah. So I found that the screening process was an insurance policy for a lot more comfort for everybody. Now they can go find the person that suits them, that they can, interact in aggressive ways toward each other, or they learn that this is the rules where they're with us. And you know what? If you own a company and you have employees, now, if all you say is every time you feel like it, go fire somebody, you're not thinking it out. But I always, when I go in and do my day with the chairman or whatever, I sit down, I go, okay, tell me when calls are inbound, are there signs that we're overlooking? Most of the answers to the problems in your company exist with the people that you have. And if you pay attention to them, and now you don't say, well, every time you don't like somebody, let's fire them. I mean, that doesn't make sense. But why don't you tell me, why don't you rank if you got 50 pools on service, rank them 1 to 50. And then I want you to go down the list and tell me why you're number 1 and why you're number 50. Is it the customer because they're mean? Is it because the pool's impossible? Is it because the filter system? And figure out what the cause of the friction is. And if it's a serial bad person, then you call them up and say, hey, consistently I'm running out of people to send out to your backyard because it seems like it's always a conflict. And by the way, we can't keep nursing your filter anymore. If you're not going to clean your filter, we can't take care of your pool properly. And so it's separating the personality from the personality of the pool. And have we really discussed with the customer there's an ultimatum that we're not going to let certain things slide? Pool's leaking. How do you maintain a pool that leaks? How do you do that? You can't.
Not very well.
You're managing potable water. You're not managing a pool.
Right.
It's costing you more money. It's going to end wrong. So, at the end of the day, put down the gauntlet. Say, you know what? We're going to have to suspend service until you do leak detection. Once we figure out where the leak is and get it fixed, we'll be okay.
Well, anybody has listened to us for a while and, knows that we 100% believe that. I mean, we got pretty good at looking at our list and getting rid of customers. I mean,
do you know how empowering it is to an employee to be able to sound off about somebody that's been mean to them?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like a good party day. I mean, now, you got to be careful. Obviously it can get carried away, but I mean, it helps you make a better business because, we just have a certain amount of defined energy to deal with conflict.
Yeah. And you're giving them a voice too, and you're listening to them. And we always, I don't know how much you've heard of us, but I mean, or from what we've said, but I mean, we always did our best to bring on pools that we would service. If we're not going to service it, if we wouldn't want to service it ourselves, then our guys aren't going to want to service it. And that's always been a staple for us from the very beginning. And we definitely try to listen to them, give them a voice. I mean, sometimes it can be a little bit, oh, well, they didn't move the trash can, so I can't service a pool. Stuff like that is a little ridiculous, but there's a way to balance it where you're listening to them and giving them a voice, but also explaining to them, not moving trash cans is not a viable reason.
Yeah.
But, certain things like that. But we've been an advocate for that from the very beginning, and that's everything we talk about with checklists and creating, educating your customers. All of that is to prevent those problems with those problem customers.
In the macro, I really feel like I've noticed, in fact, I try to call it out to people when I see it. Tony, I don't know if I say his name right, Orenda, I think it is, that's in
Arredondo.
What a rock
Florida
star, dude.
Yeah, that dude's awesome.
That dude is on. And
he's right here.
I love Tony. And
Tampa Pool Pro.
His
truck is here.
He sounded off and put up a video for a fellow the other day that was like so helpful. That's when these forums get me excited. When I see genuine people helping genuine people get better, it is good stuff. And quite frankly, the administrators of those forums need to take the people and give them a chance to get out of jail with it. I mean, one of the very active, huge Orenda supporter people out there was a very confrontational start. And there was a private discussion about decorum and respect, and it's been blue skies and beautiful ever since. So everybody has a bad day. Everybody sometimes does things. I'm ADD, man. I've done more impulsive things than any 3 people in this room, plus 10 and 4 over that. But you got to have a chance to redeem yourself and get back to the middle, because that person could be an amazing contributor in your life. And that's where they'll get to at some point. These groups will, and the people that don't know how to behave will be pushed out, And then maybe if they can clean it up, they can come back in again and help, because it is really. I mean, I swear to you, I learn every single time I see a post. There's things I'm getting out of it. It really is helpful to me.
Yeah.
And what we do, and I try to do the same thing when I see things. It's that's where it's good stuff, and
There's just a right way to do it and also a wrong way. And sometimes they choose the wrong way. And
I just found Saturdays are like the days to ignore the forums. So I don't know if it's like a lifestyle thing. I don't know if it's, because their football team got beat in high school or what. But whatever the motivation is, God help your dog. Don't kick the dog, please. I like dogs. I like cats too. But
it's all, we get it. It's frustrating being out in the field and being out on working on a Saturday for sure. I mean, I've definitely popped off more than I should too. So, but
well, let me just speak to that. I tell when I go out and look at companies, that's one of the things that I talk about. I say, we're overworked. A 6-day week is an excuse to have a bad Monday. Saturdays destroy families working, and you don't get done what you want to. Half the time the wholesale houses aren't even open, so you can't do it. I just find that 5 solid days of good, hard, old American work and a day for Sabbath and a day for family will make you a better person. We don't work on Saturdays. And there's some exceptions when you're doing startups and various things, but then you rotate it where everybody's not doing it. hey man, you got to pace yourself. You got to it's a holistic view of life. You got to do it all. You got to keep a balance in your life, and working too much and not having downtime and not getting to breathe. You know, it's hard enough as it is. One of the great things that could come, and it comes in some of the associations where friends get together and cover each other's routes so you can get some time off. I mean, you know, I've been a little too heavy on the pedal on time off, but I am 64. Come on. And I told we got to keep working because I'm right on the edge of not qualifying for medical benefits if I keep being gone. But
Oh, you call this your midlife crisis, right?
yeah, mid.
Do you wish you would have bought a Harley instead? Or
No. There's no inclination for Harley whatsoever. You know, I what I tell people at 64 is there's probably more time looking in the rearview mirror than there is looking over the hood. And, you know, my dad died in his 40s, so I've outlived him by 20 plus years and gotten to do things I never dreamed I would get to do. I still have some bucket list items to do, but, you know, just, you know, make for longer weekends. I mean, take every once in a while, go knock it out and then ramp it up and take a Friday off. And combine that with a weekend. And 3 days you could do a turnaround trip to Mexico or go down to the, but it's really important. I just see so many people working on Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday is that's like poltergeist. I mean, we have no business working on Sunday. And not working either one of those days, and it's a funny story, and Cecil, if you're listening to this, you'll laugh. But when Cecil first started to work for me, we've been friends for 25 years, 30 more than that. Worked for himself with his dad. His dad retired. He came to work with me, and he's 60. And he's the best brother that didn't come from the same mother you could ever have. He's a wonderful person, and he was used to working Saturday, and I kept seeing invoices show up at the wholesale house on Saturday. And I said to him one day, I said, you know, why am I getting bills on Saturday? Well, you know, it's just one of those days I try to knock it out. And, you know, I said, Cecil, I'm teasing him, of course. Trouble at home, dude? Why are you trying to get away on Saturday, man? Why aren't you staying home? I said, if I keep getting bills, I'm just going to call your wife up and see if there's something going on at home. I mean, you know, why don't you save me the trouble and just not work on Saturday? But a good friend of mine in his 80s, Sam Jackson in Dallas, who's had Sunkist pools forever, who's one of those people that if he ever called you and told you he's disappointed in you, you'd be crushed. And he had a retail store, and I said, you know, in the retail business, it's a little tougher. I mean, you know, Saturday and Sunday are big buying days in retail. But I said to him, I said, Sam, you're working 6 days a week, man. It's a culture that's going to kill you. And they quit working Saturdays about 10 or 15 years ago. And he said, boy, if I had any idea all the years that I'd worked on a Saturday. So 2 days off, and the Europeans really get it. I mean, they're 2+. You know, you don't hear people working more than 40 hours over there for the most part. And I don't know of anybody that works 40 hours that I know. So I think Saturday and Sunday we need to strive to have those days off and to give back to our families or to our community, to our church, or whatever it is that's important to you, and get energized. And then work hard, because I find that we waste a lot of time during the week. You know, it's a culture of working. And we look up and it's like, God, yeah, I worked 60 hours. Dude, you jerked around for 15 of them. You know, were you serious about getting home that day, or were you just killing time? Most of the time you're killing time. So, you know, get 40 strong hours in, maybe a few more during this summer because of the way our seasons work. But work toward not working on Saturday and Sunday. I think it will really change your perspective about your work. And if you have people working for you, they'll feel much better about what they're doing.
Couldn't agree with that more. You just gotta create goals. I'd much rather work 6-7 days a week for an entire year if that meant I could spend the rest of my life working 3-4 days a week.
Well, you know what's funny about that, son? I hear people tell me that, and I don't have a single friend that did it. Not one.
What's that?
They all say, I'm going to work myself to the bone 6-7 days a week, and I'm going to get to that goal line, and at 40, I haven't met him. I'm sure there's some, like maybe one or two.
We did it.
I've been doing it my whole life.
Yeah, well,
what I mean by that is having a plan.
No, I know.
If you have processes and you train your customers and you train your team and you do all these things that make it so that no matter what happens, nobody's going to be here Saturday and Sunday, no matter what happens.
No, I was giving you a hard time. I think that, I hear I'm gonna work my tail off, and buddy, here's what I learned for my 60, I don't know, close to 60 some odd days that I've taken off this year. It's like free time is a little bit overrated for me because I've been working hard in my business for a lot of years,
Right.
and I'm of course working with my family, so I get to work with my kids. That's a blessing, and I found that 36 days off is too long to be off. And so a friend of mine, Greg Howard, who is a good friend, said to me, before you dive off and decide to retire, you need to take off extended vacations and see how it goes, to see how it fits. And so what I've decided is, first of all, my wife can't be away from her grandkids for a month. That's an impossibility. So we're going to do the 2-week program here moving forward, and then come home and recharge and get away but come back. And from my vantage point, I was looking forward to coming out and seeing you guys and hanging out with my friends. Phoenix was how we started in the pool industry at Orenda. It was the first market we came to. So it's old home week for me. I'm going to see 300 souls tomorrow, a bunch of them that I haven't seen in a while. And so I still like being in the culture of work. I sure don't want to work at the same rate I did, 20 years ago. So
Everything we talked about, everything working towards goals, that's how you stop working on Saturdays. Setting those expectations in the customers, and like Greg's talking about, processes and procedures, like everything we talk about on the podcast all the time. That's how you work towards not working Saturdays and not being so money hungry that you need that extra $100 on a Saturday, when you should look at how valuable your time is and how valuable, and there's obviously exceptions. People don't have families, or people want to, there's different things, but
yeah, to each his own, you know, because we did that because we have young families. If I was a single, back when I was single and I bought my first house and I did all that, I'll work. I'll sleep when I die.
Well, you're going to provide for your family, right? I mean, but I think that there is something.
If you're unhappy,
change it.
You know what to do. There's enough people around you. You can listen to the podcast. If you're not happy working on weekends, or just there's something not right there, there's ways of fixing it. But if you like grinding it out,
I think some of it's habit, though. I mean, like you were talking about planning. So if you tell a customer who works 5 days a week, if you avail them the opportunity to go Saturday, guess what? You're going to be busy every Saturday. Mm-hmm. It was never in the narrative. When we would schedule a startup, or nobody wants to come home from work and do their startup. Well, it's their pool. I'm trying to help them. So we always said the weekend is not an option to do a startup. Everyone, we're all invested in this outcome. The more you understand, the easier this is going to be. It's got to be during the week. So that's how it ends up that way. When you let somebody have a Saturday, they're picking Saturday every time. So it just isn't available.
That was such an easy conversation, like the last year or two, once we kind of were done with that. I mean, it was almost where it got to the point where they wanted to use our services even more, because we said it with such confidence. And when you're out doing that initial bid, they really kind of got to know you and the company. It's like, don't work weekends. We like to spend time with our, families and this and that. And it's important to our team as well to make sure that we do everything as the best that we possibly can Monday through Friday. That's why we take all these extra photos and different things like that. So if there ever is an emergency, this is exactly what we do. And it was that's going in with confidence, having a plan. Everybody's trained up on that plan. It's pretty smooth stuff.
Well, I've yet to find a person that I've met in our industry that is celebrating because they're out working on Saturday. That's all I know. So unless they're, unhappy at home and it's like, I'm getting out of here. This is my get out of jail card today. But anyways, I just think that pacing yourself, I just think we waste, a ridiculous amount of time. I mean, one of the things that we do at the Pool Surgeon, I don't know what others do, I find that when you bring people together in an office, you run the risk of personality purge, right? Most service people I know like to kind of do their own thing. And so for us, we brought the office to them rather than they brought the office to us, because it seemed like a lot of time gets wasted eating donuts and kicking when we need to be working. So we sent them home with trucks and had a parts runner come to them and help them haul off carcasses and replenish, and to keep them working so that they wouldn't come to the office and find what they don't like about their peer. You know, you get personalities together, and invariably they have different views about things. And the more you commingle them, the more you run the risk that they find something they don't like about somebody. So it just was our experience that we got more productivity and more revenue stream, back to the honest 40 notion. We try to start their day close to their home. Now, some place you can't do that, right? But try to create a flow where they're working as soon as they can in the day and finishing as close to their home as we can at night to maximize efficiency and to keep them working. And then maybe, you know, a couple times a week or whenever, depending on your personality, that maybe you do a drive-by or whatever. But we usually bring the parts to them and we do a haul-off. So I've got a floater who happens to be one of my sons that, you know, helps if we're struggling on a job or pulling a light or replenishing a truck, and then he can go one trip to the wholesale house, pick up the things necessary, and redistribute them out to the trucks as they go to keep them running. But I find the mornings are a cash drain on companies. And
that's a good thought.
Yeah, I mean, I just find sitting around eating donuts and drinking coffee just usually ends in wastefulness.
Yeah, that donut does sound good, though, for some reason. So when we first heard about you guys launching the Orenda Academy, we got pretty excited about it because we just remember, you know, all the different, you know, manufacturers and water chemistry and all the different things that really are going on in the industry. We always hoped that there would be better education out there, but at our leisure, I guess, if you would. And once we heard that you guys were releasing the Academy, we got excited because we had, you know, used the app, and we knew it was very intuitive, very easy to use, and that, you know, the Academy, I'm sure, would be similar to that. And it's pretty awesome. So, you know, for those that don't really know about it, maybe can you share, you know, what the program is and how, you know, you can get access to it?
Yeah, so I think that the manufacturers that derive a living from this industry owe a pay forward to the trade to create tomorrow's worker. And it's not at least initially, a super high paying position that provides for all kinds of disposable income to get there. And I trained my middle son to be a chef. He's a 5-star trained chef. I sent him to Canada because it's a fourth the price to train in Canada as in America. And that kid can cook. But it certainly wasn't worth a $50,000 debt when you're done. And that's the way we do it in this country. Canadians are way ahead of us in that regard. So come on, folks. We're going to get trained workers that don't assassinate our equipment if they know what it does. It's way more efficient. It's a lot less expensive. I mean, I don't know what this training tomorrow is going to cost, but I'm going to pick a number. At least $50,000. That's a lot of videos. And I always tease that people are learning while we're sleeping. You know, we put out a video, 38,000 people have viewed that thing overnight. So how could I talk to 38,000 people? How would I keep my story straight to repeat it 38,000 times? Because, you know, you're ADD, right? And you kind of wing it. People always laugh. They say, when I come to your training, I love it because I never know what you're going to say. And here's my public confession, I don't know what I'm going to say. It's impulsive largely. It's brand consistent, but it comes out in different flavors every time. So Academy was designed with the reality of our workplace in mind. We know people's schedules. You know, I would say man plans and God laughs. Our schedules change. Things come up. It's designed to know where you left off. We had some struggles getting that software worked out, but we're finally there where it knows intuitively where you last were so that you can go back to where you started. And then most importantly, you have this for the rest of your life to go back to. and refresh. No doctor has read a book once. Why? How could we? Once you get in the culture of our company and you start doing this and you progress, we're not going to let you cheat. We put down some rules, as I'm sure you saw. You got to take the aptitude requests, and it's not designed to drill you and beat you down, but it's designed to make sure you're paying attention. And then once you get past it, you get to come back to it as often as you want to. So typical me, I thought it would be a 3-4 month enterprise for each unit. It's 2 or 3 times that. We're also learning as we go. So they filmed Academy 2 while I was in Europe last week. So I've seen pieces of it, and we're trying to do a little humor now and mixing it up a little bit because it gets a little heavy. But I think it tries to appeal to the attention deficit in me, that it's short and that it's decisive and informative and it's repeatable. It's at your leisure and your circumstance. If it's snowing in Maine, hey, have a party. Watch that sucker as many times as you want to. And the assumption is you're going to look at it more than once. So that's one of my takeaway problems, that when I went to a training class, it's like I come back invigorated and then I forget. So the assumption is you're going to forget. Now you can come back to it and refresh and push the refresh button as often as you want to. Once you've gone through the gauntlet of that group, then it's yours to have forever. I believe that where we're going to be tomorrow is in part because we've appealed to the industry to help more. I complained openly about the fact that we condemn people for fouling salt cells and stripping heaters and all these various and sundry things, and we tell them what it is. The joke I always tell about this, and you've probably heard me say it, that commercial on TV where they have the dental monitor and they look at your teeth and you got a cavity and they go, well, sir, you've got a cavity. Well, next step, I'm looking for the needle and a drill. And I'm the dental monitor. I don't do the cavity. Well, we're guilty as an industry of condemning people for doing the wrong thing, scolding them, but not giving them a solution. I don't want to strip you down that I don't build you back up again. I'm going to kick your butt a little bit with some stuff that's going to be hard, but you can keep pushing that button until you get it. Most dyslexics have to see things 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Hey, have a party. If you think you didn't get it or if you need to refresh, push it again. So I want it to be a constant stream and resource to allow people to re-educate and to refresh the concepts. And they're going to get, the next group is not simple. We did the ramping it up fundamentals, and now it's going to grind up. And then the next level is going to be showtime.
And is it all just around water chemistry?
By and large, yes. There's some things going on in education. There's a lot of flux going on in education right now. I envision that we'll be part at some level, some way of combining with other educators. I've been in conversations with people that are leading that space. We share common purpose. Most of the education is expensive. Right. And I don't think it's worth what we're asking for it personally, no disrespect. To pay $3,000 for a course, that's more expensive than going to Harvard hour for hour. I think we're taking advantage of people a little bit in that way. And, here again, I think those things should be underwritten by the people that are financially benefiting from it, and they're selling a anchor load more stuff than I am. I've got 3 basic products I'm selling. There's people that are, that equipment set would be a 3-year experience with a full-time customer to get there, and they're doing it 100 times. So get some legacy training that's repeatable, that's online. It needs to be in every single part of our business from stem to stern, and let the experts do. One of the things I've encouraged MPC to do, which nobody's listening to me maybe, but we spend a lot of energy talking about startup and why it's responsible for all the failures that it is, and I agree that it is. But guess what? We have a solution at startup now that those problems are not happening. So the repeat button of, well, it was startup, no longer entirely true. So now we're going to have to get back to the practice of, well, what are our practices? How much calcium should go in a mix? How many strokes should we put on a surface? And I challenge the MPC to have the how-to videos that show everybody how to plaster a swimming pool from stem to stern, what a best practice looks like. And the concrete manufacturers have taken a pass on this, in my view. You've got people like Wet Edge, for example, that they produce aggregates basically, and they're solving all these problems to their benefit. So's PebbleTech, for that matter. But it's like that's not even the cause of the problem, because it's the concrete where the problem is, not the aggregate. So yet the people that have the least to be responsible for, I challenge the manufacturers of concrete to partner to get let's get some agreement on things. Let's get what a practice is. How much water should you re-splash up on the wall? All the questions we fought about need to be sorted out. And we need to make sure we're not being lobbyists that are advocating the position of one person or another, or one side or another, to be true stewards of the transfer of information as a group. And I'd hoped that we could consolidate a lot of these associations to have a single purpose. But as it turns out, I think it's probably a terminal concept because of pride and varying agendas and personalities and all that stuff. It seems like, some people want to keep perpetuating what they were doing yesterday. Other people want to combine and work together, but there isn't a clear message at this point that there's a single purpose group out there accomplishing that. And I think that's unfortunate, but it doesn't look like it's going to go that direction. So I think inherently the service industry was sort of afraid of the Plaster Council, and there was kind of the reverse in the other direction. And I think those are coming together a little better, but there's a lot of work still to be done in building trust for what causes things to happen, and it can't always be the same thing doing what happens. And I've seen so much personal assault when it comes to that category. It's a sad thing to me. I mean, I hate to see people, talking bad about other people and mean and all that because they don't agree. And just seems to be the tone that we've had, maybe, more than we need. We need to come together and realize that when we're amongst each other not getting along, our customers are watching us, and they're not building confidence based on that. And so Orenda Academy was my challenge to people with a buttload more money than I have, with a lot more sales to support it, to come forward and to create permanent fixtures and stop selling your stuff to people. Sell concepts, sell troubleshooting habits, sell troubleshooting processes, and then look at hiring salespeople that have understandings for what it is these things do so they can go out and shepherd people. I feel like the whole selling environment's changed. I think the equipment salesperson of yesterday, and a lot of them are my friends, they're going to be replaced. And I think you're going to find more and more and more technical people that become the supporting people and the selling people of the company. It's a much more reliable strategy than bidding up who's entertaining more, who's, being folksy frenzy. And part of that comes from me kind of having a volatile personality over the years, where I kind of felt like I always had to do a really good job or get my butt kicked. So if I wasn't doing excellent work, there'd be a line of people that would be critical of me. So it helped me, I think, become better at what I did, because I didn't want to be embarrassed by things that I'd said or thought. If you're thinking things that you're not proud of, you need to rethink why you're thinking that way. Sure. If you can't share what you're thinking with your customer when you're helping them, and you're ashamed of it, or you think then there's probably something wrong. I mean, let's foster those relationships with our customers. And if you do that, where they buy it will change. Kudos to you two for trying to figure out where the bar is and helping people find it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, especially coming from you. This has been a really good talk, and we think every episode that comes out, taking every day, day by day, and we think things are slowly getting better.
It's been awesome. We really appreciate you spending time here talking with us, and it's been a long conversation, but it's been very, very, very good. So we appreciate your time.
Chop it up. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to find out more about our guests or the sponsors of the show, you can check them out on the links we have provided in the write-up below. We have also provided links to our social media platforms, so please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our tag is Pool Chasers. If the podcast has brought you any value, please do what you can to support us through our Patreon page by going to patreon.com/Pool Chasers. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to be updated each time a new episode is released. One last thing. If you're not yet in our Facebook group, join it today to be surrounded by like-minded individuals who are all trying to better the industry. Thank you all for the support. We appreciate your time and your ear.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.